2007, Aaron and our 2 children were visiting my parents in Atlanta. They decided to do an intervention with me about my drinking, and I wanted not one fucking thing to do with it. So I got in my car and left, very pissed off. And I was doing about $1.30, just 2 hours from here in Scottsboro, Alabama, and single car accident. I was drunk, flipped the car, got ejected from the rear windshield, broke my pelvis in 3 places, my leg all up. I mean, I almost died. So I was laid up for about 6 months, but I got sober that day. So Easter Sunday 2007, I got sober, and I stayed that way for almost 5 years, I think, maybe 4 years. But I wasn't doing meetings or anything like that. I was just tired of living that life. Was backtrack because I have ADHD like a motherfucker. So when I moved to North Carolina, Aaron had no idea I was addicted to meth, and I quit like cold turkey. And I didn't touch dope from that day until I stopped being sober from getting sober in 2007. I started drinking again in 2011. We had 5 kids at this point in time. Old Army buddy of mine had come back from Iraq, minus a leg, addicted to opiates that were prescribed by the VA. And we got him into treatment in Memphis, and I ended up giving him a job. He lived on our couch, and that's when I started drinking again, because I started getting this mindset of, God, I skipped so much. I'd left Pfizer, gone into medical device sales, and then started my own business. So by 2011, I had, I think, 10 employees, 15,000 square foot warehouse, pretty much.
Is that one of the businesses that you're running now?
No, we actually...
Different business,
yeah. And I thought I was on top of the world, and, a real man can drink. That was my mentality. I mean, I just safety combats that. I can drink. And so I started drinking again, and, well, that went downhill real quick. The MRSA infection in my leg, the same leg that I'd screwed up at Fort Benning, came back, and I ended up addicted to opiates prescribed by my doctor in Memphis. Had no idea, I was physically addicted to these things until I was being an asshole to a customer one day, and realized it was the pill that was making me be an asshole, so I just flushed them all down the toilet, and then, a few hours later, what happened. I was sick as shit. Well, the amputee that I had gotten off of dope was back on dope, and he gave me this little blue pill, and, I was almost instantly better. It was 30 milligram Roxy. I think from that day to an $800 a day heroin and cocaine habit was inside of 6 months, probably, maybe inside of 90 days. And I'd never touched a needle or a hard drug in my life. I mean, I'd smoked meth, yes. Let's call that a hard drug. But it had
quite
been
different than heroin and cocaine, though.
Quite different than heroin and cocaine. So, the wheels really started falling off when that happened. And that was, I think, 2011, 2013 time frame. I hit it very, very, very well. So summer of 2014, it was, existential shock to my ex-wife when she found a box full of needles and dope in the garage. Now, I was printing money. The business was going very, very well.
So it didn't just stop at the dope.
Exactly. The business was going very well up until right before that. But, she realized, what the fuck? And so she picked up and left. With the kids. The kids at this point had never seen me high. I was living a very successful double life. But the wheels just, like I said, they came off very quickly after that. 4th of July, 2014, I totaled my 68 GTO and almost burned to death in the wreck. I had bones sticking out of my feet, and I'm trying to walk from the wreck they had to pull me out of to the dope man because I made it to within a mile of his house before I totaled the car. And I was dope sick. They ended up taking me to the hospital, got out. And then I think it was July 28th, 2014, I finally got arrested. This is the most retarded story ever. So I get arrested. I'm on my way back from my warehouse when we had a firing range behind it. I had in my pickup truck, I think 6 rifles, a submachine gun, 2 silencers, all legal. I had the paperwork and everything. But I also had 3 grams of heroin and 3 grams of crack on me. And so at this point, MPD...
I feel like we're twins.
MPD was not pleased with me. And I'm dope sick as shit. You know, like I used to do this weird thing, and I'm sure you could probably relate to it, where I would tell myself, this is the last time I'm buying it. I had the money to buy a week's worth of dope at once, but I would only buy enough to get me a little bit longer that day. So this was my first trip to the dope man that day, and I hadn't used yet because I was making myself suffer because I was a piece of shit and I deserved to suffer. And so I was going to wait till I got home to use, and I ended up getting pulled over. They took me down to this place on Shelby Drive in Memphis. We call it the snitch station, where they tried to get me to become a confidential informant, and they'd let me go and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, sure. I had no fucking intentions of ever doing that. But lo and behold, they let me go. So what do? I get in my pickup truck, and I'm headed right back. They gave my truck back and everything. They didn't get my guns back. And they actually went to my house and took the rest of my guns. So I think it was 53 guns in total they took from my house. Whatever. I go right back to the dope man. I actually go back to 1186 Melrose, which is one of the houses we just bought. And I do the same thing. I'm going to punish myself. I don't use my dope. I'm going to wait till I get home, which is a 30-minute drive, to use it. And I shit you not, I get pulled over by a different agency at the exact same spot. This time it's Shelby County that pulled me over because I'm on the opposite side of the street. So at this point, I had 3 more grams of heroin and 3 more grams of crack. No guns, because they'd taken all of them. And they were not so kind at that time. They took me to jail. I forget how many total felonies they charged me with. I think it was 14 between, because it was 2 cases on the same day. So when this got in front of the drug court judge, she's like, how the f*** did this happen? How do you get pulled over twice in the same day with this much dope? But they ended up putting me on drug court, and I was not ready. I just wasn't. And so you already know how that goes. I got myself kicked off. They put me in a halfway house. I got kicked out of that. The one good thing, actually a lot of good things came out of that. All the relations, we work with that same court today. The judge that kicked me off was who suggested we buy the halfway houses that we own now, which are also the halfway houses I got kicked out of. But I met her through that process, and my case ended up getting sent upstairs to the criminal court, who oddly gave me diversion for 2 misdemeanors. They dropped all the felony charges. I promptly f***ed off the diversion. He gave me probation, which I also pissed away. And for whatever reason, he ended up giving me time served after, I think, 3 days. So anyway, this was like, I think the case finally wrapped up in 2017. And I don't even know how many times I was arrested in that interim there. I know the last time I was arrested was on my birthday in 2018. And that still wasn't rock bottom for me. Jess and I ended up losing our house and our truck on the same day, January 5th, my mom's birthday of 2019. And we ended up going to the only place we need to go, which was the dope track. So we went to, again, one of the houses that we have now acquired and are trying to turn into sober living. But we lived on the dope track and in and out of trap houses, on the streets. I was sleeping in empty lots. I mean, you know how it is. And finally, after just a slew of deaths, that you have that point where you're like, it can't get any worse than this.
And then it gets worse.
The next day it gets worse. And you're like, well, I better go use a bunch of drugs to feel better about this, and then I'll do something tomorrow different. And tomorrow never comes. And then finally one day it did. My dad called me. I have no recollection of this. I've gotten the story third hand from my wife or my parents, but he called me and I was in the middle of getting shot at, trying to rush kids inside some house somewhere. And he was like, just fucking come home. And that was all I needed to hear. Now, it took me 3 more days of doing dope to actually get on a Greyhound bus and come home. But I did come home, because this whole time I was out there for, 5-6 years, I didn't feel like anybody gave a shit about me. I really felt that way. And, looking back, my parents, they had to, 1, I'm a grown-ass man. I should take care of myself. But 2, they had to pull back out of self-preservation. This is like Cliff's Notes version of my life. We go all the way back to 14 was the first time I was in treatment. So I've been a pain in their ass. At this
for a
point,
long
for
time.
20 years, like they had to pull back out of self-preservation. And thank God they did, because if they hadn't, I wouldn't have bottomed out, and I see this all the time. I have parents hit me up, and I'm positive you do too, asking, how do I help my kid? Dude, you can't.
You gotta
suffer.
stop enabling.
You have to stop
the
enabling
problem.
them, and it doesn't matter how much my parents wanted me to get clean, and thank God my parents understood this long before I did.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much they want it for me until I want it. Nothing's going to change, and I think the thing that people fail to understand is the only thing that makes me want that is a sufficient level of suffering to choose something different.
Discomfort is a great motivator.
Yeah, and the really part though, well, there's a couple of parts, but I think one of the big ones is everybody has a different level of suffering they can endure, right? And unfortunately for me, I'm stubborn. You know, things had to get really damn bad for me. I'm very lucky in that I avoided prison time. I don't even have any idea how much time I've spent in jail, but I dodged prison, thank God. But things got very bad for me. I mean, we've been present for all sorts of, violent and horrific events, and just seen a lot of friends die. And then the other part about that, you have to hit that sufficient level of suffering, is that today it's very different than when I quit, which was just 4 years ago.